The sixth round of the Premier League is coming up this weekend, and it's time to predict every single game of this game week, starting off with Brentford taking on Manchester United at home. And I expect this to be quite a tight game, actually. Brentford, of course, having quite decent start to the season, especially at home. They've looked really good. Drawing against teams like Chelsea and Aston Villa is, of course, quite impressive. But their last outing against Fulham in the derby was everything else but impressing, we have to say. And going over to Manchester United, of course, they got a lot of credit for that Chelsea win last Saturday, which they should. But I feel like that was largely because of that early red card. And if Chelsea hadn't received that, I don't believe that Manchester United would have won that game. So, all in all, I expect a really, really tight knit game here. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a draw, but I'm going to go ahead and predict a 2-1 Manchester United away win. Next up, we have a game that I actually think could be the best game of the entire game week, so keep your eye out on this one. It's Chelsea taking on Brighton, and I do have to say that even though Chelsea are a huge betting favorite here, I have to lean towards Brighton. I really enjoy watching Brighton play football this season. I think they look really, really good and are playing really well as a team as well, which you can't undermine. And Hursler is doing a fantastic job at Brighton, in my opinion. That's more than can be said about Enzo Maresca. Even though he reached the Champions League, I haven't been that impressed by him, especially not in the start of the season here. So to see Chelsea being such a huge favorite, sure, it's a Stamford Bridge, and sure, Chelsea's squad has the value of 10 times that of Brighton. Right, we all know that. But does squad value win you games? Absolutely not. So I would lean Brighton, as I mentioned. I actually predict a 3-1 Brighton win on Saturday. Another big underdog that I really like the look of on Saturday is Crystal Palace when they take on Liverpool at home. And of course, we all know how amazing Liverpool have looked so far this season. But everything good has an end, and I think this can be the end for Liverpool's winning streak on Saturday when they face Crystal Palace, who have looked really, really solid, especially defensively. But offensively, I think the biggest credit is that they're not looking like they miss SA at all, if I'm going to be brutally honest here. And if they start this attack that's predicted on Fotmob here with Pino, Mateta, and Kamada, I think they can offer Liverpool a lot of problems. And of course, Liverpool can do the same with an even better attack, um, with, of course, Alexander Isaac, Verts, Salah. But I just think you shouldn't underestimate the atmosphere on Selhurst Park, especially when it's such a big game like this one. So I'm going to go bold and predict a 2-1 Crystal Palace win. And up next, while most people are going to be watching Chelsea or Liverpool on Saturday, I'm going to keep my eye out for Leeds United taking on Bournemouth at home. And this is a really, really interesting game, in my opinion. Leeds United have actually quite impressed me this season so far. I had very low expectations for them, but I mean, they've just looked solid. Of course, they did last season in the Championship, but as we all know, it's such a huge change in level going from the Championship to the Premier League, and they've actually done it really well so far. Bournemouth, on the other hand, is a really well coached team with some amazing players in there. Of course, we all know Semenyo, Evan Nilsson, but also giving credit to players like Diakite, Tavernier. I mean, the class is just there, even though they're not the most famous players. Also, the system just works out with Iriola. I've been so impressed by Bournemouth, so I can't say that I will be picking against them, but I think that this is going to be a very even and solid game. Just all around, this makes for a good matchup, I think. Maybe not the most goals, but it can be a lot more technical than what some people would be expecting when they see the names of the teams, at least. And I'm going to go ahead and predict a tight 1-0 away win for Bournemouth. Moving on to a game that I definitely won't be watching on Saturday. It's Manchester City taking on Burnley at home at the Etihad. And to be fair, Manchester City looked a bit like Burnley last week after scoring that early goal against Arsenal, where they parked the bus like Burnley used to do. but I don't think that we should be expecting that this Saturday, because I think that Manchester City will be trying to make a bit of a statement here and putting on a beating against Burnley. And I actually do expect them to manage to do that because Burnley, as good as they are, especially defensively, a lot of that are against the bottom teams and teams in the championship. And when they go away against an attack like Silva, Foden, Doku, and Haaland, I don't think that Burnley will stand a chance. And I just think this is a matter of when Manchester City lose interest and Pep starts subbing off his better players. And in my opinion, that's going to be at about 3-0. So I will go with a Manchester City 3-0 home win. Moving on to one of my current favorite Premier League teams, it's Ange Postecoglou's Nottingham Forest taking on Sunderland at home. And I mean, how can you not love Ange Postecoglou? He just keeps on going with the same philosophy that he had at Spurs, even though it doesn't work. It obviously doesn't. He concedes a lot of goals and he scores some goals, but it's not like Klopp where he scores more than he concedes, so it's kind of right. Ange Postecoglou, it's a car crash. I mean, I feel sorry for you if you're a Forest fan because I can't imagine how frustrating it must be to see that every week. But for us neutrals, it's really exciting to see. And yeah, Nottingham Forest, you don't know what to expect. Of course, they have some solid players. I mean, looking at the starting 11 that's predicted here, Milinkovic stands out, Gibbs White, Chris Wood, of course, and Doyle has done quite well. And we know that they are strong at home at the City Ground, Nottingham Forest. But if there's one team I've seen this season that I don't want to underestimate, it's Sunderland. I've been really, really impressed by them, and I wouldn't put it past them. Sorry, for them to win this Saturday at the City Ground. But will I be predicting that? Not necessarily, because I never know what to predict when it comes to Ange Postecoglou, and I think the safest bet is to put your money on a draw. So I'm going to go ahead and pick a 1-1 draw here. And the last game of the Saturday is, of course, Tottenham Hotspur taking on Wolverhampton at home. And how can you predict anything else than a Tottenham win? Oh yeah, because it's Tottenham. If Strond Larson is back for Wolves, it gives them a better chance. And honestly, looking at the squad, they have some really good players here, like Hwang, Doherty. I mean, it's not that bad, but they have looked dreadful this season. I expect Wolves to get relegated, honestly. So, although it's Spurs, and I rarely pick Spurs because they are so inconsistent and they have some world class players, to be fair, but you just never know what you're gonna get. But even though it's Tottenham, they can't lose at home on Saturday against Wolves. It just can't happen. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick an easy, comfortable 2-0 win for Tottenham. Moving on to the Sunday, where we only have one 3 o'clock kickoff. So everyone's gonna be watching Aston Villa take on Fulham at home. And this is just such a classic Premier League fixture. You don't know what you're gonna get here. Of course, the team with the better form is Fulham, without a doubt. But in my opinion, the team with a higher level is Aston Villa. So, how do you predict this one? Really difficult. I would expect a draw, to be honest. I would hope that this will be a lot of goals in this one, but I don't believe that it will. I think Aston Villa will be quite satisfied with the point, to be honest. And I think that's sad to say because I really appreciate Unai Emery as a coach. And looking at the squad as well, I think that Aston Villa should have such higher aspirations than that. But it just doesn't seem like it. They don't seem as ambitious as I believe that they should be. And Fulham, on the other hand, has looked really decent and like they're playing with a lot of confidence. So I wouldn't be too surprised if Fulham go out and win away at Villa Park on Sunday. But my prediction is going to be a 1-1 draw. Moving on to the biggest game of the entire game week, we head to St James's Park where Newcastle United take on Arsenal, and I do actually believe that this is going to be a banger. Sometimes when two big clubs take on each other, it's a boring, restrictive draw, probably 1-1, even 0-0 sometimes. But I don't believe that this will be the case because, as we all know, and as I critiqued them for in my last video, Arsenal played so defensively last week against City, and if they go to St James's Park with that crowd, it's arguably the toughest place in the entire Premier League to go, especially when Newcastle United take on a big team. The crowd is just something else. They're definitely the 12th man that gets behind their team more than anyone else. I truly believe that. And if Arsenal go there and play four centre backs and three defensive midfielders, I think that they are totally screwed here. I don't believe that they will do that. And to give Mikel Arteta some credit, I think that he's smart enough to realize that he shouldn't be doing that because it's just a recipe for disaster. But Newcastle at home is a force to be reckoned with. Even though they lost Alexander Isak, they still have a really decent squad. So I really think that we're going to see an eventful game here. Am I crazy for predicting a Newcastle win? I probably am, but I'm still going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and predict a 3-2 Newcastle win. And to wrap up the Premier League action, we head to the Monday, where we have the David Moyes derby, Everton taking on West Ham. One of the worst games possible in the Premier League, especially when we look at the form of these two teams. West Ham, they're just a sight to be behold, in not in a good way at all. Graham Potter surely gets sacked after losing on Monday because I truly believe that he will. Everton at home are a good side. They're not amazing, but you really don't have to be amazing to beat West Ham. I mean, I think I could pick out my local pub team and we'd have a good shot at beating West Ham right now. So, comfortable Everton win. I'm going to go ahead and predict a 2-1 home win to Everton, but it could really be more. So those are my final predictions for the sixth round of the Premier League. As I mentioned, keep your eye out for Chelsea against Brighton. I think that one will be a banger. Crystal Palace will do a lot better against Liverpool than most people think, mark my words. And of course, the all out classic between Newcastle and Arsenal on Sunday. But that's all for me. Thank you guys for listening. Hope you have a lovely weekend, and I'll catch you guys next week for the review.